Hello YouTubers, this is a short video about my JVC KD-10 stereo cassette deck. It will comprise a short presentation about the deck itself, but more importantly, after that it will show a problem that I had, which had a surprisingly easy fix. Something I think a lot of people into vintage cassette decks will know, but those new to the scene won't know, so it's worthwhile pointing it out. Anyway, the specifications. I haven't really researched this, but from the looks of it, I'd say it's from the late 70s, possibly the very early 80s. What I do know is it's from JVC's budget range. It's, I think, the lowest in their range at that time. But that doesn't mean it should be discounted. For a budget deck, it's good quality for a budget deck. Something I wouldn't be embarrassed to have on a shelf somewhere. Let's start with the features. What have we got? It has a two-head design. It has a single motor. It has a piano key transport. For some reason, people frown upon these. I don't know why. They're very reliable. I quite like them. It has a 3-digit mechanical counter, recording level controls, the usual bias and equalization controls. It's got Dolby. I think this is Dolby B, from what I can tell. It has microphone inputs, headphone output, power, obviously. The inside of it. Let's show you that. The internal construction is interesting. The transport for a budget deck is more than adequate. I've seen transports in other budget decks which are smaller, lighter and flimsier than this setup here. The JVC range, to which this belongs, was known for having good transports higher up in the range. I suspect the DNA from those higher models can be seen here. I don't have any around to compare, but I've used this for a while, and yeah. The head is a basic PEM alloy head. The higher JVC decks used to have a Sen alloy head, and along here somewhere you could see a logo, a legend, saying SA, which stood for Sen alloy head. This is a basic PEM alloy head, but it does the job. There's nothing wrong with that. What else can I tell you about the internals? The circuit board is, as you'd expect. I mean, you've got a decent transformer. The power supply section is okay. The heatsink doesn't get particularly warm. The only downside really is that the casing is plastic. Now the 80s saw the emergence of decks with plastic cases, and in some cases it would have like a pressed card or thin wood material here, particularly in the budget versions. This has plastic, but at least it's a thick, rugged plastic. If you turn the whole thing upside down, underneath there's a metal plate which can be removed and has good access to the belts, which is handy, because on some cassette decks that can be a right nightmare to sort out and change. And it's a pretty little thing as well. I mean, look at it. What's not to like? Yep, so for a budget deck, it's good. Not a groundbreaker, but definitely serviceable. So what was that problem I was referring to earlier? Well, this has been in storage, and I took it out of storage recently to clean it, service it and put it back into rotation. Now, prior to putting it into storage, I used it on and off, and it performed flawlessly. You know, it did everything I asked of it, and for a budget deck, it was just one of those very reliable things you kept coming back to, knowing it would work. It didn't chew tapes, the sound was spot on, there was no wow or flutter, nothing I could discern anyway. But like I say, took it out of storage, plugged it in, turned it on, and it hummed. In fact, it buzzed a lot through one channel. Normally when you get a buzzing or humming sound, there's a list of possible causes, and you just go through a process of elimination. Normally starting with the easiest stuff first. Things like, is it dirty contacts? Is it a dirty head? Failing that, you start looking at things like, is it a grounding issue? Or is it the placement of the deck? I mean, you can have the thing too near to a receiver, and the receiver will cause the deck to hum. If it's nothing as simple as that, you have to start looking at opening the case and looking at things like, is it the capacitors? I mean, there's a likely cause of capacitors in the power supply section going, and that can produce a hum. A visual check could reveal it, but there's no guarantee of that. You look for things like swollen capacitors or fluid or some sort of sticky substance coming from underneath. Being careful not to mistake the glue that's sometimes used for a substance from the capacitor. Failing that, you then start checking things like ICs, and particularly if the hum or buzz is in one channel. The problem I had was so easy to sort, and yet the manifestation was profound. What it did was to buzz through one channel, and even with the volume on the receiver down to barely audible, it was a loud buzzing, more than just a hum. Doing this just changed the tone of it, not much else. It was through one channel, and the other one was fine, and the needle went straight into the red when I pressed play. If I didn't press play, and if I turn the volume up, you could still hear a slight buzzing. But when pressing play, I'd have to turn the volume down, and it would still be very, very loud, and the needle would just go whack straight up to the red. So if you get this problem, what do you do? Well, the first thing to try before anything else is record and play and press down, then stop, and do that again, and stop, do that again, and stop. Do it for 10 times or so, and there's a significant chance that when you've done that, press play after that, and the problem's resolved. That doesn't go into the red, and the buzzing has disappeared. So what's happened? Well, a dirty play record switch. That tends to be the cause of one channel producing very loud buzzing and the meter to go straight into the red. If you have this problem, try this first before anything else, because it's an easy thing to try, and there's a good chance it could work. Like I said before, this is not innovative. A lot of you guys will know this, but because cassette decks haven't particularly been around for the past 15-20 years, God, I feel old, there's a generation of people who don't know about these sort of things. So those coming, those that are new to the vintage cassette deck scene, something worth knowing, particularly as the cassette decks that you'll have coming your way will be 15-20 years old and could be prone to this. Something that should be noted is that when you do the play record, switching off and on 10 times in a row test, if you find that's resolved the problem, keep in mind that's not a long-term solution. What you've done is found the problem and temporarily resolved it, but it's not a long-term fix. You'll need to gain access to the contacts inside or beyond the lever or switch inside the case and give that a good clean. Only then will you have sorted it 100%. So what am I going to do with this? Well, I'm going to clean it, both the inside, the outside. I'm going to service it. I'm going to clean the heads. I'm going to demagnetize the heads. Service all everything. But it doesn't need much more than that, because apart from that one problem with the play record switch, it performs perfectly. I mean, I'll give you an example, and this hasn't been cleaned yet, but just to show you, the belts are fine. Wind, forward, spot on. Playing is a bit muted. The tape is not good quality, it's just an old charity shop thing. Bulbs both work, which is, you know, fairly rare. Needles work, tape counter works. So it definitely needs a light service and a clean, and it's good to go. So that's a basic deck, that's a good basic deck, saved. And one last thing before I go, this is filmed with a new camcorder. Until now I've been filming most of my YouTube videos with this, coincidentally another JVC, a JVC GZMG334HEK, standard definition. A lot of YouTubers used to use these before people were going high def. What I have now, and I'm looking underneath it, so forgive the wobbly camera angle, is a Canon Legria HF200 E. So yeah, liking this new toy. Haven't worked out all the features yet, but yeah, very swish. So anyway, until next time, bye for now.